Justin James. Do you go by your actual name? Because I always see like the OG Mooch on there. I'm like, does he go by Mooch?
Yeah, most people call me Mooch. Some people
Yeah.
call me Justin. And actually, James is my middle name, but because of what I do for work, I've just never put my full name on there.
Okay.
I don't want clients looking me up.
Yeah, man.
Had it happen before. So.
The government name will get you in trouble, buddy.
Yeah. But I'm cool with either one.
All right, cool. Yeah. Well,
my own brother calls me Mooch, but he's also in the club. Ashley calls me Justin. Most guys on the team call me Justin.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I've always just thought of you as Justin. But then I do this weird thing where I associate a lot of people with the name that I see on social media.
Same.
So in my mind, I know, even if I know there's a difference, like in my mind, I immediately go to that first name, like, oh, that's Mooch right there. That's OG Mooch.
Right.
It's so weird. I associate people with a handle.
I'm like that with whatever I met you as. So if I met you with your regular name before a nickname, I'll never remember your nickname, ever.
That makes sense.
Oh, I met him as Adam.
That's how you cataloged it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, and you meet a lot of people over the course of time, and you can only remember so much.
Yeah.
I can't
remember faces way better than names.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, I'm really good at faces.
Especially like at the gym right now, there's so many people coming and going,
Yeah. Yeah, especially at up there. Man, every time I go into in the Heaths, there's you name it. There's somebody from either another country or another state.
It's wild.
Just either they're stopping in for the day or they're there for a month. Or
right.
A lot of people stop in with aspirations of being there for a month, but they're not really there for a month.
For sure.
Yeah, it's so funny, dude.
I think that was the difference. I moved out here for the team. I mean, that's why we moved here. This was pre-documentary, so a bunch of people and I was like, "Oh, I'm moving here for this." No one knew what it was,
right?
So it wasn't quite the same.
It wasn't cool when you did it.
Yeah, it wasn't cool yet. But I'll tell you the difference is, I'm a grown-ass adult that I'm 40 years old, full-time job, wife. Like, I wasn't trying to live at the gym. And I remember Heath being like, "Oh, just stay at the gym for a while till we figure it out." I was like, "Nah, I got dogs."
Right? You're like, bro, I got a whole life.
It's a different lifestyle for me. So
yes.
I came for the team, but not with those aspirations that a lot of these other guys are coming for.
Right. Yeah, I feel that that Heath is the patron saint of lost souls. Like, if you're just a lost individual, Heath is just like, hey, man, just come check it out. Just come stay at the gym. We'll figure it out. Just come here. Like, you can be homeless. You can be going through a divorce. You could be just trying to just figure out what the next step is. And he's like, yeah, just come here. Just come here. We'll figure it out. And a lot of people are gravitating towards that place. It's like a mecca now.
Yeah. And I mean, not to sound cheesy, but it legit changed my life for the better. And that's what kind of, the story we'll talk about today kind of overweaves that fact that it brought me here and then the good things that have happened with me being here. Not just jiu-jitsu related, just life in general.
Yeah. Dude, it's a cool place, man. Just the whole energy when you walk, or just in Mount Vernon. I really like the energy in Mount Vernon.
I do too, yeah.
It's very mellow. It's chill. Like, you get that very small town feel, but at least whenever you're embedded into the gym, there's a very real purpose for being there, and you have that community. It's really cool.
Yeah, the community's the best part. I mean, that's what attracted me to it too. Is it's a group of best friends, really. I grew up in bands, traveling in vans, living with all these different guys, and then club stuff, being on the road with people. So it's the same. We have that camaraderie where we're sharing everything. Right. We're all happy to see each other. Like, we're just in there together.
Yeah, dude, that's the thing that I miss the most about. When you're growing up and you're in sports and you're young, like for me, just being a part of a team, and you have that camaraderie, and then you often kind of lose that unless you find something. Like, a lot of people get it in the military, or I kind of got it with fighting, but that was such an individual pursuit. Right. A lot of us trying to search for a community. Community is so important. But it can be very hard to find that camaraderie.
Yeah, and Heath nailed it, man.
Yeah, he did such a good job. It's so vital to the human existence. So we need each other. We need packs.
It reminds me of my high school wrestling room. That's what I tell people. When I first walked in there, it's hard working, but everyone gets along great. We're all pretty much kids that need guidance. You know what I mean? But,
right.
But I mean, we're just kind of all, like you said, just that wayward misfit, group, the guys that all found each other, and just, the community is amazing.
Heath is only 4 years older than me, but I feel like he's like a dad.
Yeah, he's younger than me, and he's my boss.
Exactly. He just has such a such a cool presence energy about him. I reached out to him. I was hoping we could podcast this weekend, and I thought maybe it was Grapple Fest this weekend, but I wasn't sure. He's like, brother. He's like, we're leaving for England. He's like, I'll be back. I think he'll be back on Monday. But
they're gone every weekend.
Every weekend, man, which is so cool to see. Just the growth and explosion.
Yeah, it's wild
with that whole team, dude.
Plus, they're all just such amazing individuals, like such solid humans that you're like happy to see them doing well.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because none of them have gotten like arrogant or cocky. They're like the sweetest, coolest people.
Yeah.
So you couldn't like picture better people for it to happen to.
Yeah.
So it's like you just want to root for them, and you're happy that they're being so busy and being recognized and doing so well. You know.
What is so fascinating to me is how, I think you kind of get used to your circumstances. You get used to the things that you see all the time. And for me, it's not anything abnormal for me to see somebody living in a gym. Like I've seen it at St. Charles MMA for so long, and whenever I found out like all those guys were living in the gym, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, we got a bunch of guys living in the gym and training. Like it was just it wasn't anything foreign to me.
Right.
But then they made this documentary, and everybody gets to see how they're living, and to me, it's kind of shining light on how abnormal I guess that is, because everybody is just so fascinated by how they're living and they're training, and I'm like, man. Yeah, it's rough how they're living, but it's like not anything that's super abnormal to me. But it turns out it really is.
Yeah. I didn't
some fascinating
hear stories
shit
like that on the West Coast, man. I didn't know people lived at the gym. Like I didn't know that was a thing either.
Yeah, you didn't have like people like living out, but like on the West Coast, I feel like people live in like huts and shit out in the woods.
Yeah, probably. Get down in California, they're on the beach somewhere, I guess. But
yeah. So how different is the West Coast?
It's wild.
I
mean, and not like in a crazy gangster way or anything like that. I mean, it's very fast paced. It's very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's pretty much that California syndrome is that people from California moved everywhere and driven prices up everywhere. And
yeah.
I don't know. I don't like the pace of life. I don't like, when I was doing undergrad in LA and when I went back to Oregon, I was like, man, finally a place I can afford to live. And I'm paying $1,100 for a 1-bedroom apartment.
Oh, God.
There's Travis taking me 3 hours to go 50 miles because of traffic. And, it gets to that point. That's one of the things I love about out here is we don't have traffic.
Dude, that's the best part. It really puts it in perspective. I've only been to the West Coast like a handful of times. I think I went to San Diego, LA, and then San Francisco. So each of those one time. And it's definitely a whole different world.
Yeah, but they're beautiful and great to visit. Mm-hmm. Like I lived in San Diego. I've lived in LA. I haven't lived in San Francisco. But, there was fun at the time when I was young.
Yeah.
You wouldn't catch me doing it ever again.
Yeah. How old were you when you lived there?
I moved to San Diego in 2008.
Okay.
So it was like 27 or
yeah,
something.
So it's like 13 years old. Yeah, it's like 27, so late 20s.
And then I did my undergrad there 2011, so.
Okay. And you're from Oregon?
Yeah.
Okay, so Oregon migrated down to Southern California.
Yeah, and then back to Oregon.
Back to Oregon. Okay, and you're going to school, you said undergrad in LA?
Yeah, and then I did graduate school back in Oregon.
Okay. So at what point in time, like, you're going to school, were you like living like fucking crazy rowdy during that time? I'm trying to get a timeline on you is what I'm trying to do, because for the listeners, again, we were talking about it off air, right? Like I saw that article that you shared where it's like you were like in a high speed chase, right? And like so you had gotten into some trouble like living like a crazy wild life of a young man.
Right.
Yeah. Tell me about that time.
Okay. Yeah,
please.
Cuz school came after that.
Yeah, so that's what I figured.
Like catapulted me into school.
Okay. Pause real quick. I need to grab one thing. I didn't grab it. Give me 1 second.
No problem.
All right, we're back. Yes. All right, I had to grab some papers for the listeners. Shout out to Handwraps Rolling Papers, the homie Justin Bricker out here trying to do his thing. He's a part of the Team Voggy.
I thought so because I've seen some rash guards or something with his logo on it, right? Or
yeah, man, he's doing a good job. He's one of the best salesmen I know, and this was such a good idea. I'm really glad he's like doing his thing, trying to build this company, dude. So shout out to them. Shout out to Una Vida Tequila.
It's the biz.
Yeah, man, they're really cool, man. The owners. One of them his name is Zach Conley. He lives out in I think he's from Wentzville, Missouri. So just west of here, and his business partner is his name is Bryce. And Bryce, I'm fucking up your last name, buddy. I'm sorry, but either way, he's from Kansas, Midwest guy. So like they went down to like Mexico and found the manufacturer and like did the whole thing. So it's pretty cool. I really like that tequila. Into your story, sir.
Okay, yeah. So I've got an identical twin brother, and we've pretty much like done everything together, right?
Yes.
And it's relevant in the fact that he's involved in most of these stories. But like when growing up, we were in such competitive sports. Like we went to different high schools so that we wouldn't wrestle at the same weight class, or we wouldn't have to like compete against each other.
Because you're the same size.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Not so much anymore.
Well, then, yeah, right.
And because we were twins, I think our parents want us to have our own friend group and stuff, but it never worked out.
Really?
You know?
So they chose to put you guys in different schools just so you guys could like be independent of each other.
Great study, but it didn't work. Like we still had all the same friends.
That's certainly an experiment, right?
For sure.
Holy cow.
But we got into like the same stuff together. We got into punk rock together. Like we got really into like the anti-racist skinhead scene, and we did all like grew up kind of in like that gang style of punk rock, hardcore type of stuff. You
guys wear like the shit kicking boots?
Oh yeah, Doc Martens.
Yeah, bro.
It was
Busting heads.
Really big in Oregon, especially in Portland at the time, was like the racist versus anti-racist skinheads. And this is like pre any of the stuff that's going on now, pre-Antifa. Like, there was no politics aside from it. We just go out and smash each other.
It was a different time.
Yeah.
I remember being a kid here in like the Midwest of Missouri, and you kind of see stuff about that on TV and the news and stuff.
Yeah, like the 90s, it was kind of a popular thing.
It was like a popular thing to cover, and you just have such a misunderstanding. Like as an adult, you kind of have more of an understanding of people and kids and how people are. But I remember as a kid thinking like, man, that's some scary shit. Like you don't know who is who.
Right. It's funny too, looking back now, is where life is, right? Now I'm a social worker, and I'm like, man, look, I was making social stances back then without even realizing it.
Right, you know? Yeah.
Like, I was very invested in anti-racism, so much that I was very violent about it, you know?
You just did it in a different way.
But yeah, you know, it's a trip. But that kind of led us into different things. And in 2007, my brother and I started the first chapter of a motorcycle club in Oregon that hadn't been there before.
Okay.
And where it kind of got sketchy was the media made it a big deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like they do in a lot of places, it's, oh, hey, the existing club doesn't want the new out-of-state club here, and there's going to be this war. So they had everyone hyped up.
Yeah.
And there's actually, I sat down with the paper to do the interview, and they took a picture of the back of my head,
mm-hmm.
and it's like, that was like the famous head tattoo from our club now. Like,
really?
From that one picture. It's been used for everything. We started a chapter in Australia, it's my head. We started a chapter in Canada, it was my head. Like,
holy shit. Yeah. How does that feel?
I wish I got paid for it, how many times they use it.
Yeah, like a licensing deal or something.
But it's cool, too. You know, I mean, it's a well-known tattoo from just a one moment.
Your tattoo will live on forever.
Yeah.
Forever.
Like, if you Google our club name, that's the first thing that pops up is that picture of my head.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
That's rad, dude.
But, yeah, so this newspaper article had come out.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much was pitting us against this other club.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it was front page of the paper. So wrestling coach sees it, mom sees it. Things are getting tense.
You guys are in high school at this point.
No, this was 2007, so I'm like 26.
Okay.
But you know, we all grew up together.
Oh yeah,
same kind of
20.
deal.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone is starting to see what's going on now. I'm getting a lot of pressure about how much danger is going on, like how serious things are.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone's on high alert.
Okay.
Well, my parents live on 140 acres, and they had two houses out there. A little one me and my brother lived at, and then they lived up the bigger house.
Oh man, you've had a very interesting. So you live,
right?
You had your own quarters.
Yeah, it was sick.
That's sick as hell.
But I mean, like super private property, like middle of nowhere type deal. You can get that picture, right?
Yeah.
And the driveway up to the house is about a half a mile.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm coming down the driveway in a pickup truck, and an all black SUV's coming up the driveway. And when they see me, they freeze. And, you know, people get lost from time to time, so that was my first kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But I noticed they'd, like, anytime I'd get closer, they'd back away. They were, like, shielding their faces. They were just acting sketchy, right?
Yeah, like they're not supposed to be there anyway, right?
Right.
It's private property.
Yeah, they passed 3 private no trespassing signs to get there. So alarm bells are going off. So I'm watching them, and they turn around finally, and we come to the end of the lane, and I needed to go left and head north, and they were turning right. Mm-hmm. And this was one of those moments that I'll always remember in my life where I looked back and go, am I going to wish I should have stuck with my plan and went left? And I was like, I better go right. I better follow these guys.
Yeah.
So I'm following them. We're going through town. You know, they're looking back, but their windows are tinted, but they're like hiding. They're just acting suspect, right? Uh-huh. Then they get on the interstate, and they'd been heading south. Now they're heading north. So now it's like, oh, more alarm bells. So I keep following them.
Okay.
So I followed them by now probably 20 miles. Anytime I try and get next to them, they would speed up, slow down, like it was obvious, like cat and mouse chase.
Are you in a car or a bike?
Yeah, I'm in a truck.
You're in a truck?
And I'm by myself.
What's going through your mind as you're chasing these guys?
At the time, at first I was like, maybe they're lost. And then the way they were acting, I was like, no, they're definitely out here for something.
Yeah.
So then I start thinking bad guys, right?
Yeah, and you're like, I can't let these guys get away.
Well, my concern was, now I was supposed to be heading to Portland, which was north anyways. So at this time, hey, we're heading the same direction. Let's see who it is.
Two birds with one stone.
Right. Okay, I'll follow them for a little bit. I'm probably being over dramatic. They're going to peel off. No big deal.
Yeah.
Well, what they did is they took an exit, and I know right off that exit is the other club that we weren't getting along with, Clubhouse.
Oh, okay. So that's like
so now I'm
flag.
like,
That's
okay, now I'm going to follow them. So I follow them, and they go all the way to this other clubhouse. They park out front. I go and park down the street, so I'm not by myself, and they roll down the window, and they like do one of these waves at me, right? And all I see is a hand. So I'm thinking, okay, now I know what's up. It's these other guys, we got beef, so I start making phone calls. Well, now they get back on the interstate, and they head south. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't want to go back to my house because they know I'm not there anymore. Mm-hmm. So I follow them.
Yeah.
Followed them for an hour. And as I'm following them, more people kind of jump in on the interstate with me,
Your people
people I had called ahead to.
Gotcha.
And it got to the point where as we were coming up on the town of Eugene, Oregon Ducks, you know what I mean? Like big town, which is an hour south of where I live. So we've been on the road for a while now.
Nike's in Eugene, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm finally like, hey, we need to see who these guys are. They're not letting us get next to them. Like, fuck it, we're going to pull them over.
Okay.
So I get behind him. Another guy gets in front of him, slows down, and then a guy came up next to him. But the guy that came up next to him swerved at him and frightened him. Well, when they got scared, they hit a siren. Now, I was so convinced that these were enemies that when I heard a siren, I'm looking in my mirrors, right?
Oh, shit.
I'm like, God, where the hell's this? What's going on here?
It's not from that.
Yeah. And so then they smashed all the way over in a pretty evasive move to start taking an exit. And one of the guys tried to cut him off, and then he hit his lights. And when he hit his lights, I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
But I also was like, hey, I haven't done anything wrong whatsoever, right?
Yeah.
That I knew of.
Yeah.
So I started using I can tell they wanted me, right? Everyone else took off.
Okay.
But they're in front of me. So I'm using my turn signals to show that I'm going to go into this parking lot and I guess see what happens.
Yeah.
So I go into a parking lot. I sit there. And I look in my rear view and I realize there's about 30 cops surrounding me, guns drawn. My dumb ass is wearing like leather gloves and shit because I didn't know what was going to happen initially.
Yeah, you got to protect your hands.
And now I'm sitting there thinking, man, I'm about to get wrecked. Like, this is all bad.
Wow.
So they pull me out of the car, and kind of the funny part is that it was an ATF agent and an undercover detective that were in the car.
Okay.
That's supposedly why they didn't want me to see who they were. So the ATF agent comes up to me, and this comes out in discovery and trial later, but the cop says, hey, the radio or the microphone's recording. So he goes and he turns the music up. Now all he's saying to me is, man, what a misunderstanding, not a big deal. We're going to cut you guys loose pretty soon. I don't see that they're going to hold you for anything. No big deal. Now in trial, he's saying, this was when I was yelling at him because I was in fear for my life, all this crazy stuff.
Oh, wow.
And what they did is they put cars in front and behind me, and they escorted me to jail, and ended up being initially was charged with conspiracy to commit kidnapping and attempted kidnapping because they were forced over a lane.
Right. Yeah, you controlled that situation there.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I went to jail thinking, I'll be out in the morning. What could I possibly get in trouble for?
Right. And they tried to hit you.
Oh, man, I went down to court the next day, and my co-defendants are there, and they both are like pale white, like they saw a ghost, and we're all separated, and they slide this paperwork under my door, and I picked it up, and I just went, fuck, $14 million bail.
Whoa.
Was on like every news station.
Yeah, I saw what you shared. I'm like, this is like major news coverage here.
Because the headline was bikers trying to run cops off the road.
Right. Which that's
not necessarily at all what happened.
Clickbait, like
for
none
sure.
other. Yeah, that's the problem, man. You don't ever get the context.
Right.
They're just trying to sell papers. Wow, dude. And so now, did they have a warrant to be on your property? So they're trespassing at that point, right?
But the judge ruled we weren't allowed to call them trespassers in trial because that might favor the jury into thinking that they shouldn't have been there, I suppose.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't have.
Right.
know?
Yeah, I mean,
they said they were just trying to figure out where I lived, and they got lost by happenstance. And they also said by happenstance they turned around by that other club's clubhouse. Like they weren't going to admit to what they did, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because it sounds like, okay, so you're trespassing, you're on someplace you're not supposed to be, and then you very deliberately went to a location that would leave, the party to believe something, right? They wanted you to believe. They're painting a picture.
Yeah, I played right into it.
Oh, wow. Dude. Yeah, you're like, they got you fired the fuck up, bro.
They did.
Whoa, dude.
So I sat in jail for over 2 months fighting it because I did have a bail reduction hearing, but the lowest it went was $1.5 million.
Wow. And you have to pay 10% of that, right?
Yeah.
Which is what, $150,000?
Yeah, no one in my family has that,
Yeah.
So I sat there, and actually, I was in 23.5-hour-a-day lockdown for 2 months. So I fed in my cell, single cell. Like I would get out for quick shower or phone call and quick walk through the day room and back. And it got bad enough where I started thinking about taking a plea bargain because I was like, man, prison will be better than this. I got to get out of here.
I've heard that before where the holding process is just so bad. People are like, let me just say whatever I can to get, so much so where I think I've seen something where people will commit or will admit to like murders just to get out of the whole, so they can just get on the death row because they know living there is going to be better.
Well, in prison, you're not locked in your cell the whole time. You've got, you can get a job, you play guitar, you can work out, depending on what prison you go to, right? There's different stuff. Where here, I'm locked up the whole time, single cell by myself.
What's going through your mind?
The plea bargain was 2 years. And I kept thinking, well, 2 years isn't bad. But, man, I'm such thick-headed that I was like, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not going to plead guilty.
Right. Which a lot of people might have just thought, like, oh, I'm so screwed, I'm trapped.
Yeah, my co-defendants did. They both pled guilty, and because they didn't have criminal records, they kind of got slapped on the wrist and some probation. But they were out right out the gate. And they took plea bargains pretty quick.
And you fought it?
I stayed in jail, fought it, took it to jury trial. It ended up being almost a week-long trial. Man, it was like that and alone's a wild experience. Like, you're shackled and then changed, you put on a suit, and then they move the jury so they don't see you in shackles, and you're in, ankle cuffs and handcuffs, and
there's a whole process, right?
Every single day.
Cameras, reporters, shit like that.
And typical small town, or being happy that they had like bikers in their crosshairs type of deal. They made it a big deal every time. So they had extra cops in the courtroom all the time because what if they try and mooch out or like crazy stuff that was never going to happen.
This whole story.
They had one story during the day room one day. We were out. And they locked down the whole jail. And I remember saying, hey, watch, they're going to try and blame you for that. And I was like, for a lockdown? How they do that? Sure as shit, go to court the next day, and they said that they had intelligence that the club was going to try and break me out of jail, which, as far as I know, has never happened in the history of at least our club.
I don't even know how you go about doing that shit.
No, and, man, I'm going to trial. I haven't been convicted of anything. Where am I going to go? You know?
Yeah.
But they justified that to freak out the jury, and they just had tons and tons of cops in the courtroom after that.
That seems like a form of jury, like a form of jury tampering.
Yeah, you would think, right?
Like you're manipulating it'd be almost as if on the opposite of that situation is if you had, your entire club in there and everybody is just like standing in the fucking back of the courtroom just watching,
right?
Like very intently on the jury. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, which
like,
we wouldn't do.
Right, exactly. But it you know what I'm saying? It's like, but when you do it in the opposite side where it's all the police.
Yeah, they're allowed to do it.
Right, and now it's like that paints a different picture, and it's like, you know what you're doing.
Yep. Yeah, we can only have X amount of people from the club there. I didn't let anyone wear their club stuff in there for that reason. Everyone was well dressed and supportive.
Right.
But yeah, so I took it all to trial, and I was found not guilty of all the felony charges. I was found guilty of reckless driving, which was a misdemeanor, and reckless endangerment, which was a misdemeanor.
Oh, okay.
Which is awesome, right? Like,
yeah.
But the judge didn't like me, and it was up to her to sentence me. So she gave me the state maximum she could give me, which was a year in county jail, and then 5 years of supervised gang probation.
Oh, shit. And
one of those stipulations was I couldn't hang out with the club. Like, it's a non-association clause. Right?
Yeah. Dude, probation is such a scam.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It doesn't, because our justice system, once you get into it, it's just a mill. It's meant to keep you in it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like once you're on probation, it's so easy to violate probation, and it's literally at the discretion of your probation officer. If you piss, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, right? But it's like maybe your probation officer gets a hair up their ass, and they could probably find a reason that you just busted probation.
Easy. And it would be easy for me because I'm not allowed to hang out at the club, and that included my twin brother. And so we had
you go to Thanksgiving, and you just broke the rules.
That was an argument, right? So we actually fought back against it, and I lost.
Wow.
Because the judge said, finally, her kind of like half middle ground was if it was a specific holiday that we were going to be supervised by parents, like some ridiculous, like that we weren't out sitting around plotting gang stuff or whatever crazy things they think we were doing.
Yeah.
What was really wild is when I got found not guilty, it's a pretty big deal, right?
Uh-huh.
But I was still sentenced to a year in jail, so I had to go back. I was getting transported back. Excuse me.
Sorry, I saw the smoke I'm blowing.
No, I'm just battling this cold. But this was like out of the movies, man, and it was a trip. Is they put me into a squad car with a bulletproof vest on. Then they had a squad car behind me and two in front of me, and we went down to this tunnel. and then got out of the cars and had to go through this tunnel and came up in a different parking garage and then taken back like this in this big like profile, you know what I mean, like a big deal.
Yeah.
And I remember
like
thinking,
the whole
man,
scene.
yeah, and I was thinking, hey, you know, we've come and left this courthouse 100 times in the last week. Why is this one different? And they go, oh, well, we were worried you were getting sentenced to prison, and we thought they might try and break you out. So they had this like conceived crazy plan,
Right?
And that was so important that they were going to do some wild stuff to bust me out for a year in county. I told the guard, I was like, you know, I only got a year, right?
Yeah. It's like, why would I risk everything just to evade one
I just won.
Yeah.
I just won my trial. In my opinion, I won.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like, it sucks you're going away for a year, but hey, it's only a year in the grand scheme.
Well, and the beauty of it was, which I had known this, is, you know, this was like a huge political issue at the time, how overcrowded all the jails were. There was no room.
Yeah.
And they were going to use me as a pawn to show, hey, we got to let this big bad guy go, because essentially they have a rating system in jail. Like, what are his charges? Is he violent? Is it bad for the community? Well, I'm in there on a driving charge, right?
Yeah.
So they put me into the sentencing matrix that they call it, and I'm at the very bottom of the priority. So out of my year, I'd done those first 2.5 months. I did one more day, and then they kicked me out, and I had to do a month of work crew, like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, show up and report and do work crew.
Oh, nice.
And then that was it.
So it was your 2 months already time served
Yeah.
plus the day, and then now you did work.
Right.
And then plus the 5 years.
And that's the
probation.
funny part. There was, you know, always some sort of haters or shit talkers, right? They're like, oh, he only did a day. What did he do? Hey, listen, I already got found guilty and not guilty, right?
Right.
There was nothing to do.
Right.
And the fact was, I was being held in jail on a misdemeanor charge.
Right.
Overcrowded jail.
Right.
And they just didn't have room for me, like, period.
And how about the fact that you just sat in solitary for 23 and a half hours a day for 2 months?
Yeah.
What about that?
And I kept doing it. So
Jesus
that's the
Christ.
frustrating part. So I get out of jail. I realize I'm going to have a really hard time not hanging out with my brother in the club.
Yeah.
So misdemeanor charges, I start looking into it. They can't extradite if I go to a different state. So I said, F it, and I moved to San Diego, which is when I lived in San Diego.
Nice. And that's when you started going to school?
Not yet.
No, that was L.A.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I was down in San Diego. I was working for a tattoo shop, hanging out at the club, just kind of trying to get my shit together after just getting out of jail. You know what I mean?
Were you tattooing or were you like an apprentice?
No, I was cleaning and like learning how to pierce, just basic stuff. Getting paid cash to kick it, you know.
Yeah.
Lived close to the beach. It was a good time.
Were you already pretty inked up by this time?
Yeah.
When did you start really getting into tattoos?
16 was my first one. I remember on my wrestling team we had to cover them up because it was like they weren't popular yet. You know? And so a coach would make us like ace bandage over them.
Yeah. And by this time, so you're already, how long, are you pretty much completely covered?
Yeah, my legs are still relatively open, some low back, a little bit of ribs, but yeah, I mean.
But like arms, obviously all this, right? So how long did that process take for you?
I'm 40 and I started at 16, so, you know.
You're still getting tattoos?
Yeah, not as much. I don't like them. It hurts now.
So you did was there a period where you did like a bulk of the work?
Probably in my early 20s, for sure, yeah.
Oh man, what did it feel like getting your head tattooed?
Terrible.
Really?
It was work. I bet I get asked that question almost daily.
I'm sure you do.
And absolutely insane how bad it hurts.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's the type of pain where obviously you can sit there and deal with it, but it's not pleasant.
The vibrations going through your brain, right? Like,
yeah, your whole head's on fire. Wow. It sucks. The ones I will say this though, like chest and other places will still hurt the whole rest of the day. The minute he stops tattooing my head, it doesn't hurt anymore.
Really?
But it's while he's doing it, it's terrible.
What are you thinking when he's doing it?
Oh, man, I try and like zone out. I try and focus on breathing. Just kind of like find some sort of weird zen so that I can like not focus on the pain.
Yeah. I try to do the same. I just breathe. I just try to focus on a spot, or I just tell myself, I'm like, all right, this hurts really fucking bad, but it's only temporary. I'm like, this pain is temporary. This tattoo is going to be badass forever.
Right. And I know me, I have a bunch of half-finished tattoos. I'd rather sit there and get them done than say when I come back.
Let's just power through this.
Yeah.
I always get really bummed out when I'm like, all right, we're almost done. We're going to probably be done with this pretty soon. And then they're like, all right, let me just take a break for a second. I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude, like a break? And then it like settles in, like all the pain starts setting in, and they want to come like re-agitate the spot. I'm just like, bro, let's just power through, dude.
That's the worst.
Holy shit.
The worst is like when he says you're almost done.
Yeah.
So then you're like sitting there counting the seconds and he's still wiping. Wiping.
Yes.
Oh, terrible.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
Right? So you're in San Diego?
Yeah, I'm in San Diego.
Tattoo parlor?
It's probably only there 6 months.
Okay.
And our club got hit with a national-wide raid. It was Operation Black Rain. It was like the biggest federal investigation of a motorcycle club ever, I think.
Really? Dude, the only so the first thing that comes to mind anymore these days is probably for a lot of people is what you see on TV, right? Which is fucking, Sons of Anarchy.
Right.
It's like I watched that whole show, and it's like this whole RICO case that they had in the show. And that's such an interesting concept where you can you can send a whole bunch of people to jail with like no real like physical evidence.
That's a fact.
Only just suspicion and
or they'll have a predicate crime based off one or two individuals.
Yeah, and then
that somehow overlaps to everybody.
Yeah, and you're like, well, you guys are all friends, right? So it's just so fascinating to see, and it's like, but that's real life shit. Like that was developed for a purpose because you didn't actually have evidence.
Yep, and that's the purpose now, right? So you can take it and fight it in trial and look at 15 years to life, or sign this piece of paper that you did it and we'll give you 6 months or a couple of years, take your plea bargain and go home. So they have this high conviction rate because who's going to fight that?
Yeah.
Because say you're going to fight out the RICO, but I did some heinous shit. Well, they're going to bring up what I did in your trial because you're going to be there for everybody's stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's how you're supposed to beat that.
That's wild shit, man.
So they just force everyone into these, trumped up plea bargains.
And that's how they hit everybody at once, like across like the nation.
Yeah. So they hit like every state, and I don't know. We can get super sidetracked on that, but the point was my whole chapter got busted, and now I'm down there by myself.
Gotcha. Riding solo.
Yeah. So I came back home, turned myself in, went back to jail for 2 months.
2 months.
And that time was kind of funny, is they put an informant in there with me, a guy that used to be in our club that we didn't know he was an informant at the time, but looking back was probably pretty obvious. And,
hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah, and so he's in the cell next to me, and I'm like, oh, familiar face, cool. And I kind of told him my game plan was, I hope I get violated. And the judge says, you're going to jail for the year, and then I get out without probation anymore. Mm-hmm. Because I know I'm going to keep going back and forth otherwise.
Yeah, so if you violate parole and you go and you serve X amount of time, now you're just done. Time served,
yeah,
no more probation.
You can go back for the remainder of your sentence or even the remainder of your probation, but then you will come out without probation, right?
Got it.
And now I know the jails are full. I know that I'm there for misdemeanors. How long can I really do?
Yeah.
Instead of keep going back and forth.
Right. That makes sense. It's like, let's just get this shit done
I thought
with.
so.
Yeah.
Didn't. No, the judge was a lot smarter than me. He went and told, and it came out in court that, this informant had all this valuable information, and that was it. And so she violated me 1 count at a time. I had like 5 counts, right? So I would have had to have gone through that process 5 or 6 times.
Damn.
And I think I did it 3. I violated 3 or 4 different times for hanging out at the club, went back to jail, and did a month to 2 months every time. So, I still ended up doing damn near my year.
Yeah.
But it
was just like incrementally.
Yeah, it was over the several years.
Oh, my goodness.
But that's what got me into school. So,
yeah.
Man, I came back one day, and the guard pulls me aside, and he says, man, we actually had a bet whether you'd be back or not. And I was like, oh, yeah, trying to be a tough guy.
Yeah.
And he goes, man, look around here. He goes, do you fit in? And, respectfully, but there was people in there dealing with, homelessness and drug addiction and mental health and all these people that I didn't feel were my people, right? And I remember looking around thinking, no, this isn't for me. This isn't where I want to be. And I just felt really low. You know what I mean? Like I just felt really bad about myself. I was like, man, this isn't the legacy I want to leave. This isn't how I want to be remembered. In and out of jail my whole life. Like, this isn't the life I want to lead.
Right.
And that's when I was like, well, I got to do something.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. And so you're 26, 27 around this time, right?
Yep.
So it's interesting. Around that time, did you notice a difference in the way in which you were kind of like thinking about things as a whole? Like you started to perceive the world a little bit differently around that time?
I would say it was probably closer to my 30s before I wrapped that up. But a lot of it was because of distractions I had from other stuff.
Oh, okay.
I'm young leadership in this club, and I'm like trying to fill that role and do these different things. And I'm still earning a new name and a new reputation and a whole new world.
You're like a young man trying to figure his place out in the world, man. So
I was still kind of going then versus when I finally got settled in and life really hit me.
Yeah. And the reason I ask is because, and I fucking harp on this all the time. I always talk about how, typically, the human brain kind of like starts fully developed. It's like fully developed around like 25.
Yep.
Typically, right?
Yep.
So, and I've even noticed like in my life with me and like especially my little brother, and you kind of see across the board, usually around like 25, 26, you kind of start, your brain's fully developed. You start thinking a little bit differently. You kind of start becoming more of an adult. You have like more of an adult mind.
Long-term planning, action, consequences, all those parts.
You have this understanding, right? So all of that shit. So I guess that's why I'm just thinking. It's like, so it's kind of weird. It's like, I wonder if it's like, oh man, your brain just kind of turned a corner, and then now you just had this conversation. And it sounds like now you're actually able to receive that message.
Right.
As opposed to maybe if you had that conversation when you're like 24, you're like, get the fuck out of here, dude.
Right, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? It's just like, man, it's like the mind is such an interesting thing, because I always think about how, and we don't have to go deep into this, but we were kind of like talking a little bit about like the Rittenhouse case and shit like that, how like kids, you know, when you're like 18 years old, you graduate school. You're 17, 18, you graduate school, you go into the world, you're considered an adult by society. You can vote, you can go join the military, you can go get a job, you can go do all these things, right? But really, it's like, yes, like physically, you I mean, you're pretty much grown, but even then, you're still physically developing for quite some time. Like, at the end of the day, you're not really an adult. You're not really grown. You're still
you have no idea what you're doing.
You're a fucking kid still. You're still a child at 18. You know what I'm saying?
No direction. No idea what you're doing.
You don't know who you
Poor
are.
Choices.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't know who you are. You're fucking. You're irrational. You just think for the now. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, there's no long term planning. You know what I'm saying? It's hard.
Most of my 20s.
It's hard to have any empathy, and you know it varies. But usually around like the late 20s, you kind of start thinking a little bit differently. Hopefully. So it's just like, man, just the idea, and this is like bigger picture shit. I was like, man, sometimes like I understand how it's like, all right, you're 18, you can make decisions, you can do this thing. And it's like, man, if you make bad choices, like you need to be held responsible. There's consequences for choices. But sometimes I'm like, man, we completely ruin people's lives because of whenever they were like this irrational creature. Like young boys between like 18 and like 25, they're pretty dangerous creatures, right, in history, because you're full of testosterone and ego and like all of this shit, right, which a lot of great things have been built off of that shit, right? Like that's why we have empires and all this crazy shit, right, inventions, all this stuff. So it just blows me away, like how if somebody just maybe is, who knows what the circumstances are, but you just make some decisions and you get in trouble or whatnot, and then now that can affect your entire life, even after you've either like served time and maybe, you know, you've grown, you've learned from it, you think different. Like you see like 40-year-old men in prison who got in trouble when they were like 18, 19, 20, like they robbed somebody because they were desperate or some shit, and it's like now you
couldn't shake the stigma,
and
get out of that circle,
or you can't break the cycle. Like you can't get, like, you're on probation, or you know, now once you're a felon, now you can't get jobs, you can't vote. I mean, you're just a slave again at that point. So it just blows my mind.
Well, and that's kind of the crossroad I was at. So I got a felony when I was 18 for a fight after high school. I was in high school, but it was an after school fight. And the very short version is I had to do with a bottle, so it was a pretty heavy felony charge, and I took a plea bargain, and I got a felony. Okay. So I've had that since a month after turning 18. It's been on my record.
Yeah.
I still have it to this day. And so here I am thinking, okay, I know I'm better than going in and out of jail, but what can I do with myself? I've got my head and face tattooed. I'm a felon. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, you make a whole bunch of choices. Based off like an ability to think long term.
Yeah.
And it just is what it is. Like, that's the human experience, but like, what are you going to do now?
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was at. What really pulled me out of it is there's a member of this club that's his PhD in clinical psychology, and if you saw him, you would have no idea. He's got more tattoos than me, you know, long hair, rings everywhere. I mean, he's placed apart, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, hell, man, if he can do it, I can do it. He looks crazier than I look, you know, and I've always been into, like I told you, like kind of social work and helping people. My whole family is teachers. My twin brother owns an adult foster care home for adults with developmental disabilities.
Right.
So we've kind of always had that like helping aspect.
Very nurturing, protective.
Yeah.
Very protective. So what'd you get your undergrad in?
Well, I started at community college for my CDAC, so my certificate for drug and alcohol counseling.
Okay.
And I liked it, but it wasn't like my calling, you know. I got really into psychology. I got my undergrad in psychology and social behavioral studies.
Okay. So, yeah, you completely, like, I'm trying to explain to the fucking guy who understands the brain.
Yeah, for sure. But that's why I get it. Yeah. And then my master's degree I got in social work.
Okay. And so you went to LA for your master's degree?
Oregon.
Oregon
George
for your
Fox University.
Okay,
I did
sorry.
Whittier College for my undergrad.
Okay, gotcha. So then I mean, you get your degree and then what? Like, what's your plan?
Right. Well, that's why I didn't know that. Right? And that's kind of what ends up bringing me here is I'm finishing up my master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting really into working out at the time and I was feeling good. And I started, but like we were talking, I missed that like team or like just the challenging myself, right?
Yeah.
And my friends were trying to get me to try jiu-jitsu, but since I'm that arrogant guy, I was like, oh, that's your thing. I'm going to try something else. I was trying to find all these different things, and I found Krav Maga gym.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, this could be cool, right? I've heard cool things. I didn't know anything about it, but, it's one of those martial arts you hear about. So I was like, oh, that should be neat.
They talk it up very well, too, right? It's like you're using elbows and knees.
Yeah, it sounds really cool.
It's all about damage. Yeah.
So I meet with the instructor, and she was super cool, and I did a class, and it was fun. And I remember leaving there with just that good mental health space, right? Like, I struggle with depression. I think a lot of people do. And the one thing that really helps me is exercise, So I remember leaving there just amped, I was punching things. I was moving around. I felt young again.
A lot of benefits to it, right? You found some community. And at the end of the day, some of those techniques are going to work, right? And if you are going to learn something to fight, I mean, shit, it's not the worst thing.
Right. And I was just moving. I was having fun. So I was coming back and I was telling my wife, Ashley, how much I liked it, how amped I was. And so she was excited that I was excited. And the next day, the instructor calls me and tells me I can't come to class anymore.
Really?
Turns out, there was a bunch of law enforcement that trained that martial art, which whatever. But because my crime was against cops, they hate me, right?
Oh, wow.
Which to me, I think is a weird, and we could talk about this with jiu-jitsu related too. It's a weird perspective to come from because here's my thing. Say I don't like you and you start coming to my gym.
Yeah.
What's the best chance to get to know you, right?
Yeah.
If you've been doing it and I'm not, I'm going to beat the hell out of me, I guess.
Yeah.
That was my thing. I was like, I guess I'm getting beat up by cops the rest of the time I go here.
Right. Get your licks in here.
Or try and get to know the guy, right?
Right.
But the whole, hey, he can't come here is something I can never really understand.
It's very closed-minded.
So they told her they were going to go to the police union if she let me come. So that put her in a bad spot. It's her business. And she was very upfront and cool about it. And I hold no grudges. But I was asked not to come back. And that's when I was like, well, I guess I'll try jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
And I went to the local jiu-jitsu academy, and the head coach was a guy I grew up wrestling with. He was on the wrestling team a couple years younger than me. We had some history. We used to box together. And so I was like, oh, shit, Nick does this?
Oh, so you grew up doing a ton of different sports, right? You said you...
Yeah, I only boxed for a minute. I mainly grew up wrestling. I mean,
so mostly wrestling.
Yeah, as a kid, I did all of it, right?
Okay, you play like football?
Everything, yeah. Because like I told you, my parents or family was all teachers, so they're also coaches.
Okay.
I was a track coach, football coach, basketball coach.
Oh, so you're a long-time athlete.
Yeah, I was never great at any of that stuff, but I did it all.
Yeah, that's important, though.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, so you've just completely grown up just being in teams.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then add that into, a twin trying to find his own identity, and it kind of makes sense where I went up.
Shit, man. Yeah, dude, that's cool. So wrestling was your thing, though. Dude, wrestling changed my whole life.
Yeah, me and Jeremy my twin brother, we did mat club in grade school. We wrestled all through junior high school. We wrestled all through high school.
Oh, nice.
I lettered every year except for junior year. I got suspended for fighting, so it was not a semester. But, yeah, I mean, it was a big – I was back and forth between varsity and JV. I wasn't like an amazing standout wrestler, but I was good enough to keep doing it, and I just really liked it.
Yeah. Man, I can dig it. Changed my whole life, dude. Absolutely love it. My son just started wrestling this week, and so I'm helping he's in 8th grade, so it's like it's still the kids club, and I'm pretty excited. I think he's gonna do really well. I feel like, man, you can be way better than me.
My nephew, who this is gonna sound terrible, but I want to say he's 8. He just had a tournament this weekend.
Okay.
He's doing great at it.
He
lost his first match, but then next 2 were pins under a minute.
Nice.
First round pins, and he did great.
Dude, it's so cool. It gives kids so much confidence, and it just teaches them how to just overcome and what it's like to really have a struggle.
Yeah, I mean, that's how jiu-jitsu is for me, is once I really got into it and you get in all these hard positions and you want to quit, you want to tap because you're tired or in this bad spot. Yeah. Man, I think of that when I'm getting tattooed. I think of that when I'm at a shitty spot of lifting weights. I think, I'm riding in the cold or the rain. There's so many moments where I'm just toughing it out that I learned those moments from jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
100%, man.
Because I had to be there to go, hey, nothing's going to stop until this round's over.
Right.
Right? You're here.
Yeah, especially at Pedigo's, the one thing I always tell this to people, the one thing that is different about them compared to a lot of places is that they don't stop rolling.
Yep.
So if you'll be rolling off the mat, you'll be rolling onto another group. Don't stop rolling. It doesn't matter, because if you stop rolling, that's when you're either going to get tapped or most likely probably hurt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're probably I always remember in football, the coach would say, if you're not going full speed, that's probably when you're going to get hurt. It's usually, you're going slow and something happens. So I just apply that to the same. And every time I've typically gotten hurt in like one of those situations, it's where I just kind of like I'm just not being sharp enough. I'm being a little too lazy, a little too lax. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's not like I have to be going full go, but like I'm just not, I'm just sloppy essentially, right? And then you get fucking hurt. So it's like, man, you need to be on your shit. You can't stop rolling. You gotta keep going. Right. So so you feel that pressure, right? Like those guys just put it on you. If fuck man, everybody else is rolling hard. We got, a 3, 4, 5 minute roll. It's like, all right, I gotta go.
Yep. I just try to figure out ways to slow it down. That's it.
Dude, yes.
Stay controlled.
Do you try to roll mostly gi, or do you like no gi as well?
Almost every time I've been hurt was no gi.
Okay.
It's a lot of scrambling and stuff like that. And then now
Pulling
with
on
my
your neck.
with my new injuries, there's no way. I mean, I do 1 day a week no gi.
Okay.
So I'm moving around, having some fun, learning some new things.
Yeah.
But I don't roll the same at all.
Right. Yeah. Gi is it's really nice to be able to slow down the game.
Yeah, I'll get my grips, try and get in a good spot, and I'll just start chilling.
Yeah, you get that old man jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I love it. Because even with those quick youngsters, if I can slow them down, I do okay.
Yeah.
I just got to slow them down.
Right, yeah.
Otherwise, they're spinning all over me.
Dude, they're wild. They'll be doing cartwheels and shit over top of you. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I try not to do that. I find that most, like, newer people to jiu-jitsu, they almost all kind of play the same game, whether they're young or old, and it's for different reasons. I found, like, if you're young, you feel like, all right, I'm young, I'm athletic, so your idea is I can just be explosive and athletic.
I want to show these guys I don't suck.
Yeah, and you can just do things. You're like, all right, well, I'm going to hit this real hard. I'm going to cartwheel, or you're just going to try to explode into stuff or muscle into stuff. And then if somebody's maybe like they don't have to be that old, but if they feel like they're older, they'll feel like, all right, I got to go really hard so I can keep up with these young guys. And it's not because they feel like they're athletic or anything like that. They just feel like they're at a disadvantage because they feel old.
Yeah.
And then now they end up going crazy hard and they're intense. And it's like, hey, I need you all just relax.
That was me before the injury, for
right?
sure.
Yeah. You can't breathe.
Yeah.
You're like holding your breath all tense.
Yep, tight. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, everybody goes through the same struggle, I feel, especially wrestlers, right?
Right.
Did you just put your head down and just go?
I still do. The only thing, though, I still get away with it is everyone's scared to grab my neck now, so now I cheat.
Everybody's nice to you. They're like, don't.
But not before. I was getting loop choked every day.
Yeah.
Guillotine,
That's so
that was
funny.
like my habit. I still do it. I notice because I always tell my wife that I've got really good skin on my forehead. It just gets rubbed off on gis every day.
Yeah.
Because I remember coming back, my skin's always all smooth and shiny. I'm like, yeah, because I was digging it in there.
That's so funny. It's constantly exfoliated.
Yep.
From the gis. Oh my god. Yeah, that is so funny. Yeah, you fuck around and get choked out with your gi real quick if you like lead with your head. Get guillotined or something.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I've been loop choked a lot.
Yeah, I bet. How long have you been at Mount Vernon now? So okay, let me actually back up. So you started training jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
How long are you training jiu-jitsu before you come across Heath, or how do you get connected with Heath?
It was about 4 months in. So probably like most of us, when I got into jiu-jitsu, I was all in. I was no longer lifting weights. I was training 3 times a day. I was going to graduate school in Portland. Mm-hmm. I'd get up in the morning, drive an hour and a half north, and go train with an old friend of mine that was a brown belt, and he was coaching at a different gym.
Okay.
So drive up there, train with him, go to school, come home, and then go hit night class at Impact. And so at least 2 times a day. Plus we had I got a bunch of guys in my chapter to do it. So we put mats at our clubhouse. So now we're rolling with each other at the clubhouse.
So you're training all the time.
So I mean, easily 6 days a week, 2-3 times a day.
Like the bug.
I was getting it hard. Yeah, for sure. And right around that time, so same thing. So law enforcement never really dropped the fact that they didn't like me, right? Mm-hmm. And kind of a funny caveat to that is I went to a thing for Shoei Roll put on up in Portland. I can't remember what they called it. It was where they traveled and showed gis and taught some seminars, and it was cool. World Clan. It was like a World Clan thing that they did. So a bunch of guys from different gyms were there, and there was cops training. Well, there was a picture of me and my brother in our gis, and apparently a cop took a picture of us taking a picture, and they put it up at the academy. And it said, "These guys are training, are you?" It's like to motivate them.
Like,
the bad guys are getting it, are you?
Holy cow. What a motivating message.
But that was kind of starting to go through the gym now. And now I knew, okay, my coach was cool with it, but the gym owners were kind of weird about it. And I was kind of back in this. Is this one of those things where I'm going to get kicked out again?
Yeah. Yeah, because there's quite a bit of law enforcement.
Well, yeah, for sure. And I'm still very into, like, just getting into the jiu-jitsu scene. I don't understand the politics of it. Oregon's a lot different than here. So I wasn't confident that they were going to be like, yeah, Justin's cool. You know?
Yeah. And it's very still close to home, right? Like, this is the law enforcement, like, in the area.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very personal, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, and there was a few guys I trained with that were law enforcement that were all nice guys. We didn't talk outside of the gym, but we got along just fine, you know. But it was, you know, higher ups, and you know how that stuff works.
Yeah.
Well, at the time, I just got my very last internship to finish my master's degree, and it was like my dream job. I was going to be a counselor for kids at the kids' prison.
Okay.
Stoked, right? Killed the interview, was hired. They sent me this address to go for the training. I didn't think anything of it. I show up the first day of training, and it's at the police academy.
Shit, what's that feeling like?
Man, I drove in there. I'm like, no way. Like, what are the odds? This is the state police academy. So all the counties were there. Every state was there. Everybody.
Shit, dude.
So I'm trying to always keep myself in check, and I'm thinking, man, you're being way too arrogant. Nobody here knows who you are. You're in a motorcycle club. Like, you're not a kingpin. You know what I mean? Like, get over yourself.
Yeah.
So I, like, hype myself up. I start walking through the parking lot, and by chance, the state chief of police was walking by me and just mean mugs me the whole way.
Oh, wow.
And I remember texting Ashley going, "That's not going to be long." And I was there for one day before they pulled me out of class.
Really?
And they're like, "Hey, are you in this motorcycle club?" I was like, "Yeah, I sure am. And here's why I think it's a positive, and here's why it doesn't affect my job." And, you know, because I don't hide it.
Yeah.
And they were kind of cool. We had this back and forth. They're like, "Well, we're going to have to, you know, talk to some people and call you back." And then I got fired.
Oh, wow.
Well, I sued and I won. I sued against the whole state against discrimination.
Oh.
Or for discrimination.
Oh, wow.
I won $1,001, some random
$1,001,
amount. And it wasn't a paid job, so it wasn't out money. It was the principal. You know,
right.
They paid all my attorney fees, and they gave me $1,001.
And now here's the thing. Now that sets a precedent.
Right.
Right. So now it's clear that if they try to do that again in a similar situation to somebody else, they can't do it now.
Right.
100%.
Yep. Yeah, and you know, I wanted to do it because I want to stand up for myself too. I said, "Hey, I'm brand new to this field. This is going to come up a lot."
Yes.
And like, I'll happily talk about being in this club, but I'll also tell you why it doesn't affect what I do for a living.
Right.
In fact, there's certain things that I think is like having the tattoos and stuff like that is almost a benefit for what I do. And you want me to start working with teens?
Yeah.
Who are they going to relate to?
Yeah.
You know, the tattooed biker, or, you know,
they're truly going to believe what you're saying. Like, listen, dude, I've lived this. I have the perspective, right? Like, here's the proof. Like, why would I lie to you?
And, you know, the whole point of that whole therapeutic rapport is that people want to be heard, like really heard. They want to know you understand what they're saying.
Right.
So I never have to tell my story at all. I think they can look at me and say, this guy gets it.
Yeah.
Like, I have that leg up.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, that's the energy that you give off.
For sure.
Yeah. So yeah, man, it's like, listen, this gives me a perspective and an ability to connect that others don't. It's a positive, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, so I sue the state. I'm in all these newspapers. Just finishing school. Finding a job's difficult because my face is on all these newspapers, right?
Yeah, fuck.
All I care about at the time is jiu-jitsu. And that's when I was like, well, hey, I met these dudes in L.A. I'm going to see what's up with Heath.
That's cool.
So I called Heath and said, hey, what's up out there? And
yeah, cause were they out in L.A. for like Worlds or something?
Yeah, we went down there. So I was going back and forth between those two gyms. And then because I was going to California so much for club stuff, I was training with Orlando Sanchez all the time.
Okay.
And he was like my professor, even though that wasn't like my home gym. That's who like promoted me to blue belt and stuff like that.
Okay, so you weren't like a Gracie Baja guy, but that was your professor?
Just if I trained with him, like, because we just did a ton of privates. We do seminars. Like, at least once or twice a month I was training with him.
Yeah. And I know he took a liking to like Andrew Wiltsey and Heath. And
that, so I was going down there for Worlds. Brand new. Man, I think I went to Worlds. I've been training 4 months. But, you know, I was in my head. I'm hot shit. I'm ready to go. I'm beating everybody. I'm doing great.
Yeah.
You know? And so I flew down there with nobody. And, I mean, I know the club in town and stuff. But, man, I'm a college student. I got no money. Orlando's supposed to pick me up from the airport. I'm going to go out and stay with him and then train the whole time. Well, he forgot about me. So I paid like a $100 Uber ride out to Orlando's house. He wasn't there. So I go to the gym. And I just start training. He texts me. He's running late to start training. So I'm training and doing pretty good in his room. Starting to feel real confident. And then the Daisy Fresh dudes walked in. And, you know, I kind of stand out. Rhonda was there. He's being loud, you know. And
I love Rhonda.
Group of guys. And he's being super nice. And so right out the gate, I start rolling with Josh Graham. And I remember looking at him thinking, okay, he's smaller than me. I'll probably, you know, he's a white belt. I'm a white belt. I was doing real good against the other guys here. man, I bet he traveled me 6 times in one round. Like,
Really?
he manhandled me. He treated me like I was brand new. I mean, I was, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Not like anything. Everything else, I was like, man, I'm rolling really good. I'm going to do good at this tournament.
Yeah.
He made me like, man, dude, is jiu-jitsu even for me?
It's like a shattered reality type thing.
But it was great, too, because I instantly was like, who are these guys? And I want to train with them.
Yes.
You know, like, these guys are kicking my ass. Get me in on this group,
yeah.
you know?
Well, I think that's the right reaction.
Yeah, it was awesome, you know? And then they were just really cool guys. We hung out a lot. So then the next day was the tournament. Orlando didn't show up to it, and I didn't have a coach. So I went up and was talking to Heath, and Alejandro ended up coaching me.
Okay.
Who I didn't know, you know what I mean? They were just helping.
Yeah, they're just so always down to help.
Yeah, and so I linked up with him and Garner and some of the guys from the team that were there, and I spent all day at Worlds with them, all night. We went out to dinner together. I didn't have a ride back to Orlando's, so they gave me a ride back, so we ended up going to dinner. So we just all really clicked and hung out.
Yeah, you know? They're just such good, like, Heath just gives off such a good energy. And it's very, like, calming and, like, welcoming.
Yeah, and they provided exactly what I was looking for. You know, I was training at, like, 3 or 4 different gyms. I didn't feel like any of them was a home gym.
Yeah.
And then coming from, like I said, kind of gang stuff to club stuff, I was looking for, like, that tight-knit community, like a real team.
Right.
And I saw that with them right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I remember coming home and telling Ashley, like, that's where I want to be. Those are the guys I want to be with.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. It's just everybody just looks out for each other. And I always like when Heath invites people to come train, because it's literally just like an open invite. There's zero pressure with it at all, and there's no strings attached. He's like, yeah, man, just come out, stay, chill, like, train
For sure.
like, come out and get better. Like, he loves it.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, he definitely just wants to help people, man, and that is super apparent right out the gate. Like, I never felt bullshitted. I never felt like, what's the benefit of having me on the team? He knows I wasn't coming out there to try and be a world champion. I'm not putting points on the board.
Right.
I'm just coming to hang and be part of the group.
He just likes having good people around, and you like to help people, right? So I mean,
sure.
that immediately aligns with, I mean, your ethos.
Yeah. Honestly, like, right out the gate, that's my big part. I feel that's what I bring to the table, right? I'm a good friend to everyone on the team. I'm there for anybody if they ever need anything.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for. You know?
Man. So now, I mean, you moved to Mount Vernon. What was that transition like for you, like, here in the Midwest? Because the Midwest is different than the West Coast, bro.
Right. So I kind of touched on earlier that I used to be in a band, so we traveled a lot. We played all over the country. So I'd, like, seen clips of the Midwest, but I never spent time in it, right?
Yeah. So, dude, I don't want to gloss over that. What was it like being in a band, dude?
It's crazy. You're Imagine, like, a bunch of guys, and they're like...
You're in a punk band, right?
Yeah, we're, like, early 20s.
From the region of punk band, right?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? You're not like some Midwest people trying to, like, be a punk band. Like, you're there where, like, all the punk bands are at.
Right, yeah, and we toured with all, like, the bigger name punk groups in the 90s, you know, and put an album out on one of Rancid's record labels. We played like the Warped Tours and CBGBs, like, all the cool spots. Yeah, we did some really cool shit.
So what's the name of your band?
It's called The Escaped.
The Escaped?
It's hard to find because it's such a cheesy, generic name, but...
Bro, The Escaped.
I posted a bunch of it on Instagram yesterday because it's actually on Instagram Music, some of our old songs. And I was like, whoa, sweet. So I was, like, posting clips of them. You know how you can, like, add songs to your stories?
Yeah.
Yeah, our band has some songs on there, so I was, like, reminiscing. And
how do those get on there? Is it just because they're in the
maybe if they're on Spotify.
Just the Spotify database?
We had, like, 3 records out on actual record labels, so they had distribution and stuff. But this was, like, pre-internet, man. You know?
Really?
That's probably my wildest touring stories I can ever tell anyone, I was calling people over the phone to book concerts. I was physically mailing demo tapes, right?
Yeah.
And then when we were getting ready for tour, I'd go to the AAA and get all these maps. Or right when MapQuest came out, we'd build a binder of MapQuest. But there was no cell phones. There was no internet.
Dude, it's such a different time.
22-year-old kids that have no idea what's going on in life, just traveling the country trying to figure out where we're going and how to get there. It's crazy.
How were you guys traveling? Were you like, did you guys get like a van?
Yeah, we had a van with a trailer behind it.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy shit,
because we were probably
dude.
living off $5 a day. It wasn't like we had anything sweet, you know.
Did you guys have hair?
I didn't, but the guys all had mohawks and charged hair.
Okay. I don't know. It might be hard. I don't know if I can fucking find you.
Dude, The Escaped and then Rose City Hardcore.
Rose City Hardcore?
Yeah.
The Escaped? Rose City? R-O-S-E?
Yep, it's for Portland.
City Hardcore.
But we did it for about 5 years, man, where we'd be home for a month or two and then back on the road for a month or two, home for a month. Like, we had similar to what they have the Fight House here, we had a band house. We all lived together, shared the bills. that's like another thing that I think that really linked in common with me with the team is that we shared all our food. We were going to food pantries together. We were sharing our shirts. You know what I mean? Like,
dude, the struggle, like going through hard shit with other people, brings you so close together.
No doubt.
Yeah. Did you have I see this Rose City Hardcore and I see a bridge.
Yeah, that's our album.
Is that your album cover?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's not like a blog spot. The fuck? New York City Hardcore? What's that? I don't know if that's you. Man, see, this is why I need a Jamie Vernon, bro. But so damn, dude, you've had a wild ass life. So that's so interesting because you know when you meet somebody, you don't know their whole story and you don't know like where in their story you're meeting them because it's like depending on when you meet somebody is how you're going to view them, right? So it's like, man, if somebody who's lived many different lives, it's like you might know me. Like for me, for example, it's like you might know me as like a fighter or you might know me as like just a jiu-jitsu guy. Like some people have no idea I even fight because they're so used to like seeing me as jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Or some people now they're like, oh, you're just like a podcast guy. Like you're the podcast guy. So it's like you don't. It could be a number of things just depending on when somebody catches you in life.
For sure. And it's funny you put it that way because I was just thinking about this the other day. They seem like different lifetimes, each one of them. Like,
right.
I was posting some stuff yesterday, like reminiscing of the band, and I was looking back, and I'm like, man, that was a whole different life. Here was a young kid in a van, just traveling the country, meeting people, sleeping on couches, playing music. Like, to think that I did that is crazy.
Right, but how cool is that story?
It was awesome, and the friends I met there are still friends to this day. Like I made amazing connections, networking was it was just incredible. I got to experience so much cool stuff how else would I have been able to,
Right. Yeah, I mean, shit, man. That is that's such an experience, right? Like that's something that you would never want to do as an old person because it would be so miserable, but when you're young and you're just doing crazy shit, all the stories that you've accumulated, like I feel like that's the time to do it, man. Like,
and to me, that's the wealth. Like I think we've talked about it before. I'm a social worker. I don't make money. I've never really had much money.
Yeah.
To me, life's all about making stories, man. Having stories, like making good experiences and those memories, so that we can sit here and talk about them. Or my late nights when I'm out with the guys and we're just rambling on, and I'm like, oh yeah, this one time, To me, that's way more important than anything.
Dude, experiences over things every day of the week, man.
Yeah, and how many people got to travel around with their best friends to play music,
Dude.
We weren't very good, but we had a great time.
Exactly, dude. Growing up here in the Midwest, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but the narrative is a little bit different for kids coming up. It's always like, man, you should really, find somebody to be with and like go to school and get your degree and go get a 9 to 5 and kind of like settle down.
Right.
I feel like the whole narrative is just to try to push kids right into just responsibility and bills and like weigh people down with debt and just like you should just be doing like this is the path, and it's not really often like told to like go and like do shit, try shit, travel, like be risky, like it's okay, like that's the fucking time to do it. You don't need to really be worrying about your 401k when you're.
I didn't go back to college until I was almost 30 years old.
See, like it's not too late.
If I would have went after high school, I would have failed because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have a goal yet.
Yeah,
it wasn't until I was invested in psychology where I was like, "This is what I want."
Yeah, Yeah, and you probably would have had some debt for no reason.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and oftentimes it's especially coming right out of high school. It's like you're a loser if you don't take that path.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? And it's like, man, I don't know why you're making kids feel that way because life is it's in the grand scheme it's short, but it's actually pretty long too. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to have it all figured out tomorrow, but when you're a kid, you feel like you have to have everything figured out yesterday.
Yeah, there's plenty of time for it to work itself out.
Yeah, you feel like time's running out though when you're a kid. You remember that feeling?
Yeah.
Dude, it was crazy.
Another big difference too, and this is probably more generation than regional, but there's not the same pro-social activities around for kids that there was for us. Like for me, there was t-ball, there was wrestling, mat clubs, football. Like we were busy as kids all the time. We never had a lot of time to just sit around. And when we weren't, culturally was way different too, right? So if the sun was out, we were out playing football or we were boxing or you know what I mean? We're riding bicycles, doing dumb stuff, but we were out being active kids a lot. Yeah. That I think shaped our generation a little bit different too. Yeah. Because how much did you learn from sports? Sports taught me a lot about what I know about life, and in fact, enough that's why we're still drawn to them, right? We're still competing and doing sports,
Yeah. Dude, so much so for me, I look at like movement as a whole as like a form of expression, and like it's like a language in itself. Like you look at body language, that's like, that's nonverbal communication. That's just like the movement and like the subtleties in our body language, right? So I look at movement as like an expression, and for me, I feel very comfortable when I'm doing sports. Like I feel good when I'm wrestling. So you know how typically, whether it's wrestling and then you go and do jujitsu, and there'll be things that are like similar, but they'll have like different names.
Right.
That's why I'm like, movement is kind of like is like the expression, and then whatever you learn first is just kind of like the language that you use to like explain the movement. You know what I'm saying? So like if you're a wrestler, then you might use these terms. If you're a judo guy, you might use these terms. If you're a jiu-jitsu guy, you might use these terms, but they all kind of mean the same shit usually to explain a certain particular movement, right? So for me, I always say that wrestling was like my first language that I learned. So whenever like I'm learning jujitsu or something, I typically like relate it back
that makes sense.
to wrestling. I don't know what my point was with that though.
Well, and I guess mine was just, if you just think the life lessons you learn, right? Like if you want to get good, you have to put in the work. That actions have consequences. You're not gifted anything in sports, right? You got to put in the work. You have to put in the work. Those are things that stuck with me, even in the band, right? We're not just going to meet someone famous. They're going to jump us on tour. We had to keep playing shows and being active and working hard and making yourself known. Like, all that comes to me from learning that in sports. That's what practice is for. That's the point of practicing. That's the dedication, being on time. Like, just so many things you learn at sports that you don't realize how important they are later in life.
That's very true. Yeah. I've learned so many. The one thing that always sticks with me is like, if you're on, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. I remember football. I always heard that shit all the time. But like I said, wrestling made me realize what it really means to work hard.
Yeah, there's an accountability piece big on those individual sports.
Yes,
for sure.
yeah, and it was that sport that was it was the first time I was ever broken. Like our coach made a point to like break us down so he could build us up.
Yeah.
And I remember one time in particular, it was like a Sunday practice. We came in. I was kind of feeling like I was hot shit because I was like I tend to do the best on the team. Like me and my practice partner, we both did really well at tournaments. I'm like, all right, whatever. So we come in. Usually it's just like a lift, maybe a run, maybe we would wrestle or something. But this day, coach seemed to have a very particular mindset and agenda. He seemed a little pissed off. He made us lift crazy hard. It's like steaming in there. We lift crazy hard. Then we fucking run really hard. We had to go run around the hallway. And you had to make it around in like 45 seconds or something like that. And so you're sprinting. And if you didn't make it in that time, then they added one. And I think we ran like 16, which I think that's the equivalent of like 2 miles. So we basically just like sprinted 2 miles of that. So then after that, we're like, oh, surely we're done. We're all really tired. Nope. We went and live wrestled for another hour. Crazy exhausted, dude. We're all crying. We're all exhausted. Like
he got through it.
He broke us that day, right? Yeah. But then I realized because I hit a second wind. I'm like, man, you think there's times where you're about to break, and maybe you do break, but you're actually like maybe breaking through a wall, and you can do more than you thought possible, right? And it all is with the mind. Yeah. Right, so it's like, man,
and there's the team piece too, right?
Yeah,
you're miserable there with other people that are going through the same misery that didn't quit on you. They're sticking it out. So those connections, which that translates to where we're at now, the teams we're on now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's the community is my favorite piece of jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
It's my favorite piece of everything. You know, because to me, I like making connections. I like meeting people. You know, and that's the biggest part.
Yeah, and that's probably the strongest. Like the piece about Mount Vernon, right? Which is kind of what drew you out here.
Yeah, half the time I go to the gym to catch up with the guys.
Yeah, just have a good time.
Between A, I need it for my mental health, and B, I just want to go BS and catch up with the guys.
Yeah, a lot of it's for mental health for me too, dude. It's like, oh man, dude. Especially this time of year, man, when it's
I'll notice it big.
It's only, daylight for like 8 hours. It's like, oh my gosh, dude. The seasonal depression is real, man. Right. I'm trying to do better about just making sure I'm getting the sun exposure when I can.
Yeah, that's what was hard in the Northwest for sure.
Did that really like
big time? Because summers are amazing. You're having this great summer. You're outside. There's so much to do there. So you're in the mountains, or you're boating, or on the lake. You're spending all the summertime, and all of a sudden it's just gray and dark for 6 months.
Oh gosh,
and that hits you real hard, real quick.
How cool is it riding your bike through the Northwest?
Amazing.
Oh my gosh,
amazing. Definitely way different than here, right?
Yeah.
Now it's just flat, straight. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's definitely beautiful.
Dude, I've never seen like the redwoods and stuff, but
Amazing.
It's so high on my priority list to go check out.
And even stuff like that we got to do on tour, because we'd be like, oh, let's go this way home or the back way. So there was stuff we got to see as kids too,
Yeah.
Or because we were all broke, we'd camp.
Yeah, saved you money.
Yeah, so like we stayed in the northern redwoods once where we just all camped and
Really?
and hung out. Yeah.
Dude, how crazy was touring?
Nuts. I don't think we could do the way we did now with the internet and everything else.
Too much evidence.
Man, we would go and we get in fights with people, and then you're going to advertise when you're coming back. You know what I mean? Like, how did we not get jumped? And you know what I mean?
Oh my God, yes.
And underage drinking and whatever. We were just doing crazy stuff because we were like unsupervised youth, just on the road to party. Really,
dude, you're adults, right?
My twin brother was our driver, and at the time, I spent most of my life drug and alcohol free, so we'd get all these drink tickets, and I'd give them to the other guys in the band, and then we'd be the sober guys and have to drive everyone home.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I mean, the stories alone were amazing. Places we stayed, incredible. Like, yeah, it was nuts.
Memories.
Super cool.
Holy shit, dude. So now you're just a boring guy.
Yeah,
you're just like, you're married and you...
Live, train, ride. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Man.
That's cool as hell, though, man. It's Illinois is an interesting spot because... like it's really cool, like it's beautiful, and you're in the small town, but I don't want to go down like a political lane, but it's I've just noticed like a lot of the state is influenced by like Chicago, like just one massive city,
right?
Which is way different than the rest of the state.
Oregon's similar like that.
It's like it's
got
just
Portland and then everything else.
Yeah, and it's like you have this one city that completely controls an entire state essentially. Like that's an interesting, like kind of like dichotomy, like a place to live in.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like
we love it here, man. And I think the big difference, is club related, right? Like I told you, we just got messed with by the cops a lot.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Out here, I'm not dumb. I'm not naive. I know if we go out and break the law, we're going to get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't, they don't mess with us here.
Right.
So that's especially coming with the personal beefs that I had. I think the way I was treated.
Yeah.
That's been huge. The pace of life, the low cost of living, which works well with my what I do for a living.
Cheaper, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, all of that stuff has made life so chill and easy here that we're just so happy to just flow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's the best way. And here's what's crazy. I grew up in all these different areas doing these gnarly things. I feel like my tightest and closest friendships, no disrespect to everyone back home, is right here.
Yeah.
Like
you found
I've met some really good, just genuine, solid people.
Yeah.
And I would have a hard time leaving.
Yeah.
And we're locked in. We ain't going nowhere.
Dude, love it. And now you're doing social work here.
Yep. Yeah.
You have your own program or?
Yeah, I'm a supervisor of it's a group called multisystemic therapy is the type of therapy we do. So what we do is we work with teens that are on parole probation.
Okay.
12 to 17-year-old roughly. And what's cool or different than about us is that we work with them in all of the ecology, right? The multi-systems. So I can work with their coach. I can work with their teacher. So we don't actually do much counseling with the youth alone. It's very caregiver focused because you'll notice a lot of these times in broken homes or issues, it's the family system is where there might be some drivers or things that are pushing those behaviors.
Yeah, yeah. So you're taking a very like holistic approach, right? Like you're working as a team with all these different aspects.
Because the goal is, we're not coming there and fixing anything. We're coming there and empowering caregivers to keep it on when we step out of the picture. So it's very intensive, but it's only a 4-month program. But when instead of them coming to see us, we go to their home. We're in the homes. We're in the schools. I go to court with them.
Yeah,
3 or 4 days a week per client.
And what you're finding a lot of it is just rooted back in kind of like the home situation with a lot of these.
Time, man. Learn behaviors and family systems for sure.
Yeah, man. From I guess what I've learned is that just so much of it can manifest in many different ways. I found it, I guess, in people, but it's all like rooted back in like trauma.
Yeah.
Whether it's like maybe you're obese or maybe you're like lashing out with violence or maybe you're pushed like schizophrenia. Whatever the case may be, like I just threw out some crazy examples, but it's like
no, but you're right for sure. A lot of things are very trauma based,
and
that's why most therapy now is trauma focused because we recognize that, right? We recognize a lot of behaviors are based off trauma.
Yeah.
What's cool about the program we do or the type of therapy we do, because I transfer this to everything in life now.
Yeah.
Is we have these things called fit circles. So say your issue's going to school on time. I'm going to put that in the middle of the circle, and I'm going to say what drives that behavior. okay, he's up late at night, maybe doesn't want to go to school, he's got bullies at school. So I put in all these things we call drivers, and then I attack them one at a time. So if like, okay, now I'm changing your schedule. Maybe now you're not staying up so late, you're not tired. Okay, now you're getting better communication with your teacher, so you know when homework's due. Like, if we fix the little drivers, we'll fix the overall behavior instead of being like, oh, here's medication, or oh, talk through it with me. We're actually making quality fixes where that once we're out of the picture, they still have the success and the support they need to move forward.
Yeah.
And so that's been super cool.
That's important, right? Actually treating the cause.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like we have such a failed like healthcare system in so many ways, in that I think that we're just it's a model just based off of just what's a symptom, and then what is the the medication that we can to give them to address a symptom, right? It's never really, well, what's the actual root cause of the problem, and how do we fix that, right? And actually make them healthy, right? Like, that's the healthcare, as opposed to just like putting the Band-Aid on it and just, sick care.
Right. And
Just
I won't ever
maintenance.
advocate that medication doesn't work, but I would say this: it works in conjunction with other things, right?
Right.
It works with therapy, or like we were saying, for depression's a super common one, where if you're physically active, you feel better, right? So say you start eating healthier, or you're drinking more water, or you're getting plenty of sleep, or you're working out.
Right.
That in conjunction with medication, great.
Right.
Or in conjunction with therapy, but it's not, none of those stand on their own. Like, it's one of those things where everyone has to do a little bit of everything. Or, a lot of people don't need medication if they're doing those other things too.
Right. It's
but
like,
you're right. It's a quick fix, right?
Right.
Just take this, you'll be fine. Oh, what about the fact that you're drinking 5 days a week? Oh, that's not, I just have to take this pill, I'll be fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, let's not look at the other, like you said, the actual root causes.
Right. And like, what can we do to help?
Yep.
And most of it takes effort, right? Which is it's not, that doesn't sell.
Yep. You have to want change.
Yeah, man. And that's a whole conversation in itself. Just change, like behavior influence, like influencing change. I don't even know how to. I mean, I've done like some personal training and some health coaching, and it is so hard to influence behavior.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if somebody isn't truly ready and like wanting to do that, it's very difficult.
And that's why I quickly fell out of love with substance abuse counseling. Most people that are court ordered, most people didn't see they had a problem, didn't want a problem, and I didn't see the types of changes I wanted to see, right?
Yeah.
And you take it personal as a therapist if you're not seeing progress, like, is it me? Am I not doing right?
Right.
Versus, I also facilitated a group called Men's Challenging Violence, and it was group therapy for perpetrators of domestic violence. So I'm meeting with guys that were all there charged with domestic violence at some point. And here we are teaching like more of a feminist perspective, just kind of like a shared worldview, like an updated worldview, right?
Yeah.
Again, fighting against learned behavior, family patterns, all sorts of crazy things that people believe that aren't true, right?
Yeah.
That's when I saw major change. And that's when I was like, oh, this is awesome, because I can physically see it,
Yeah.
You get a guy that comes in one day that's possessive and controlling. He doesn't think he is. He thinks it's normal and okay. And then at the end of the program, he's like, man, you can't say that about her. You can't talk to her like that. You hear him saying that to other people in the group. And that is what's rewarding.
Right.
But that's like you said, he's physically seeing that change.
Right.
Is a huge difference.
You get some real feedback there.
Yeah.
Have you like kept up or like anything or research on anything with like the use of like psychedelics or like psilocybin for therapy? Is that anything you've been looking into?
Yeah, because I microdose, so I know it works for me.
Yeah. Is that something that you're interested in, like facilitating, like psycho-assisted therapy?
It's tough, right? Because everything I read about it's such a controlled environment that a lot of it sounds almost awkward, right?
Okay, yeah.
Like, I'm going to sit here and smoke this with you and you're going to talk me through it. I don't know if I'm in the mood for that, right?
Yeah. I don't know what it looks like or how it works or anything like that. I know I've heard, do you follow like Rick Doblin and like MAPS or anything like that? So Rick Doblin, I think he's based out of San Francisco, and MAPS is the multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies, and they've done a lot of work in the space. I think since like the 70s, and I believe they're on like stage 3 trials with I believe MDMA, and I think they might also be working on psilocybin.
I think mushrooms, San Francisco and then Oregon got some license where they can start working with that in the studies too.
Have they? See, so it's like I feel like we're pretty close to a time, and I think according to like Rick Doblin, within like maybe like the next like 3 or 4 years even, to where we're gonna start seeing these clinics pop up across the country, to where people can go for therapy, and they're going to need like therapists to man these. So I don't know what the certification or the training or anything is going to be like. So
that'd be cool though.
Yeah, it's almost going to be like the Wild West. So I almost wonder, you know what I mean? Like I wonder what the training's going to be like. I'm sure it's going to be like a controlled environment, but you would hope it's like an inviting, relaxed environment. It's like you walk in here and it's like, all right, we're just going to chill in the living room.
Right.
And like do this thing. I don't know what it looks like, but it's super intriguing.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's obviously it's already proven that it positively influences brain chemistry, right?
Right.
So there's a bunch of positive benefits. Now it's just figuring out how do we roll it out and make it work.
Right. Yeah. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm glad,
excited about it. I think it's cool.
I'm very excited. I'm glad people are figuring it out, right?
For sure.
I almost think that you have to have a pretty heavy experience to actually appreciate microdosing, because otherwise you're just wondering, is it working?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's a lot of people just say, I don't feel it, or I don't want to trip. And you're like, no, you're not going to trip. But here's like trying to even explain it. Or like, hey, was that a good dose? Oh, I don't know. I don't think I felt it. I mean, it was probably a good dose then. Right.
Right. From a microdose perspective. Right. And that's why I'm like, man, maybe you need to have like a little bit of heavier experience. So you're like, all right, I know what the come up feels like. I know what the ride feels like. So you can kind of ride the wave. And then when you do a microdose, you're like, oh, okay, I can feel that.
Because I'll do it before a roll. I like to do it before a roll. You know?
I feel tuned in.
I do kratom before I lift. Like there's certain things I do as like pre-workouts.
Yeah, I like kratom a lot.
I do too.
Yeah. I did some psilocybin last night.
Nice.
I had this podcast this morning, and the psilocybin kept me up to like 2 or 3. And so like I woke up probably at like, what time did I wake? Like probably like 10 or 10:30. 10:30 probably, and I think we podcasted at like 11 or something.
Oh, straight to it.
Yeah, so I was only up for like an hour, dude. And I'm drinking coffee. I'm talking to the guy. I'm like, man, I'm sorry, man. Like I had some psilocybin last night. Like, I just didn't want him to feel like. I'm like, man, I'm just sorry. It's just really early. I've only been up for an hour, bro. But I just really enjoy those experiences to where it's just like, just kind of tap in, see how I'm feeling. It just allows me to kind of just have some perspective on some things.
Yeah, it's good.
And just work through some thoughts sometimes.
But you're going through with that structured plan already, right? Like, I'm going to do this to work through things. Like, you have to kind of be in that mindset.
Yes. I don't like, so I feel like a lot of people have a misunderstanding of like, they think, what is tripping, or I'm gonna like, what's a hallucination? I'm gonna have like, they don't understand. It's like, no, man, I'm not gonna sit here and think I'm a fucking glass of orange juice. I'm not gonna think there's a pink elephant over there.
I've done way too much of all of those things and still have never gotten there.
That doesn't happen, right? You know, so but people have these weird misconceptions in their mind of like what the experience is gonna be like.
Right. And it's scary if that's what you think. That was like the first time I tried DMT.
Right.
The only reason I was able to do it is I had it in a vape so I could work myself up to blast off. Because my initial thought was, you're telling me I'm going to take one hit of this thing and be on a different planet? That scares the shit out of me. Bro,
have I ever told you about when I did the DMT dude?
I don't think so.
I did blast off of one hit, dude. It was crazy. It was so powerful. I wasn't ready. I thought I was ready.
I think I worked myself up to it that when I did blast off, I was amped because I wanted to be there, and I like worked up to it.
Yes.
You know? I took a couple hits to get the body high, a couple more to get the like wah-wahs, and then a couple more, and you see the shapes and stuff. But really had to hit it before I had that crazy out-of-body experience.
So you were ready for it. Yeah. You kind of were tipped. Yeah, no, not me, my friend. I hit it. I was like, whew. And then I was just thinking, kind of like when you do like psilocybin or LSD, how the experience is still very much like here. Right, in this plane of existence, dude.
Not DMT.
I thought that was going to be the case with DMT, right? And I'm looking up, and I see some geometrics for a second, and then all of a sudden, like now in hindsight, I know what happened was like I saw those, and I got super overwhelmed. Like as I'm blasting off, I closed my eyes. I didn't realize I closed my eyes though. I just like just took everything.
Mine like feel like they were forced closed.
Yeah,
I was trying to keep them open, and all of a sudden I was like, bam! And the minute I closed, I was flying through space.
Exactly, same thing, dude. Like opening my eyes, like I felt like this thing overcame and just sucked me up.
Yeah.
And then I was just.
It's so funny talking to people that have done it, how similar their experiences. It's the only drug that I've ever done with other people where we've all had very similar experiences. Like I'd done so much, just getting ready to blast off, and there was kind of this shadowy creature in front of me, and he like slowly touched me. It wasn't scary, anything was there. But he touched me to close my eyes, and as soon as I did is when I was blasting through space. And now you're like, I felt like something wanted me to close my eyes, and then I went through space. I'm like, that's what I saw.
I never really thought of it as a shadowy creature, but yeah, it was like this. I felt like I was engulfed in this blackness. Yeah. That dude, I remember being very discombobulated. Like I didn't know which way was up. There's all these colors. I felt like I was almost like going through hallways, like turning corners crazy fucking fast, but every which way. I didn't know
That's what I was like in a coliseum. Same.
Yeah, dude. And I felt like I was gonna be there forever. I was so scared.
The one thing that's kept me straight on that stuff is I've always been able to keep my self-talk. Like I've been able to say, hey, this is a trip. You brought yourself here. And the biggest one for that is it's a short trip.
Yes.
I don't have to get into that mushroom mindset of, I still have to do this for 6 more hours. How am I going to, where I was like, because I remember one time I was a pretty good one at DMT and things were kind of getting dark.
Yeah.
And I had that mental talk and all of a sudden everything just literally lightened up and were like bright. And I was like, see, I have control.
Oh.
That wasn't good, but I had to have that talk with myself.
Yes. No, I just freaked the fuck out, dude. I was just freaking out. I'm just like, oh my God. I'm going to be here forever. I was not ready for this. Oh my God. I just want to be back. I just want to be back.
Out for like 30 seconds probably.
Yeah, I think it was like 10 minutes or something like that. And then whenever I came to, I was just like curled up right here, like next to my couch, like on the edge of my couch there. And, but the entire time I felt like I was me. I was me the entire time. My physical body wasn't there, but I was there. And like, I've thought about that experience quite a bit since then. And what I believe is that I was so scared, and I was so scared about it, and what I realized is that what kind of freaked me out was that I thought I was going to be there forever, and when I think about it, I realize now that was the moment that I realized like I am, like I have a body, I'm not my body. Because I've always thought, like I've always associated who I am and my experience with like what I see in the mirror and what I can feel and touch. But like I was still very much me, but I was somewhere the fuck else. And like I was like, man, like I don't know, like you can call it a soul, you can call it energy, whatever you want to call it. Sure. Yeah, dude, whatever you want to call it. But like that is me. That's what I am. Yeah. And this body is just like this temporary plane of existence. It put me very much at ease with one, death.
Same.
And then two, like I've always had this internal resistance to Christianity and religion, but like growing up in Missouri, like my uncle's like a Pentecostal preacher, and like I've very much kind of been in and out of the church and had this inner struggle. And but now I'm just like, nah, man, like that's not for me. Like I don't really believe in that shit. Like that, if you want to believe that story, then that's okay for you. Like I'm not going to judge anybody who's Christian or religious or anything like that. It's on you. But that's not me.
Same.
Either way, it put me very much at peace with my decision.
Same.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man,
that's what's the trip. Like I'm saying is,
we
all go through such similar stuff off of a certain drug that we have very similar reactions.
Man,
it's a trip.
It totally put me at ease with this life.
And DMT is one of those things I've done it once or twice. I'm good for the whole year. Like I don't like,
I don't have this intense urge to be like, oh, let me go do that again.
No, once you have a real strong one,
I was scared. I was nervous, dude.
I had a really intense one. The last one, it was all good, but it was really intense, and it almost scared me to the point of same thing. You're like, oh, am I stuck like this? And you're going. So then afterwards, I felt great. But then I was just good for a while. I was like, oh, I don't need any more.
Yeah, yeah. I had that experience with psilocybin one time. I took 7 grams and blasted the fuck off. And where I messed up was I took it early in the day, and we had plans with friends later on. We go down to a landing. I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm going to blast off. I'm like, man, I'm leaving this plane. I thought I was going to lay down and go to sleep and be gone until like tomorrow. I'm like, I'm not going to wake up till tomorrow, but I need to be here. And I was just fighting it. And that wasn't a good thing. But I still went kind of to this place a little bit. It was like blasting me off, almost to that same place I go to a DMT.
Yeah. So it's just too long for me.
Yeah. It's wild.
I like to microdose that stuff, but that's it.
Yeah, but I'm very I'm convinced that like that's a place. I don't know where it is or what it is.
Right.
But I feel like that's a place. It's a thing because I feel
talking about. I'm ready to go back.
When I'm there, I feel like whatever it is, like everything's one. Like I'm it. It's me.
And it's a good mental reset.
Yes.
Like you said, you wake up just kind of feeling like bigger picture, more part of things, and the things that were bothering you don't seem as important.
Yeah.
Stressed.
Yeah. It's interesting stuff, man. It's definitely interesting stuff. I enjoy it. I'm very excited to see where like the field of just therapy like is taken now that we're looking at some of these other compounds like MDMA and psilocybin and ibogaine and a whole bunch a lot of different things.
Yeah. Well, even like like I said with my neck injury, I don't like taking a ton of Advil or ibuprofen or stuff like that, and I don't take pain pills.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe to party from time to time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have a prescription to them or anything. Kratom's helped me a ton with that, but I've also had to figure out my dosage with that.
Yes.
Because, I kind of get groggy when I come out of it or tired, or I build tolerance pretty quick. So finding different strands and all that. And then I do it before I roll every time now. And
Yeah.
It's like my go-to.
Yeah. I like it. It makes me feel nice and even.
Yep.
Kind of
And it helps a lot with
tunes
pain,
me
man.
in. Yeah. Like I believe it attaches to the opiate receptors, correct? Although it's not technically an opiate. I believe it's in the coffee family.
Yeah, I would imagine, just from a drug and alcohol background, that any of these like non-narcotic pain medications or stuff like that, if they attack the same receptors, you could build a tolerance to them, and you still have withdrawal symptoms. Then what's the difference?
Yeah, so
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it might be classified different. I do think that there could be some dangers to it if you're not taking it appropriately or whatever. But I do know that it's been a happy alternative for a lot of people to get off of opiates and other drugs.
Yeah, it's helped quite a bit of people get off of opiates, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what I've read.
Yeah. I think so much so that in like Southeast Asia, it's like illegal to get kratom.
It's illegal in a lot of places,
right?
And they made it illegal here 2 years. Well, I guess right before I moved, about 4 years ago, and they, for whatever reason, got overturned. It was illegal for a few months.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of battles back and forth here in the States, like on kratom.
I imagine at some point it will be because it's too good to be legal.
Yeah, man, I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, man, it's pretty cool. I had this guest on the show. She's a huge advocate. She lives in Chicago. Her name's Nina Iden. She went through this thing, or she's going through this thing. It's a very severe case. It's like this steroidal withdrawal, where like she was prescribed like topical steroids for like a skin issue, and her skin basically became like addicted to it, and now like these withdrawal symptoms occurred where she becomes extremely like flared and rashed and inflamed, and like it caused her to like lose all at the height and worst of it. She's made leaps and bounds, but like at the height and worst of it, like she looked like she's just like very scarred. Like the skin was flaky. She lost her hair. She almost looked like a cancer patient.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, man, it was just wild. And it was from these steroids. And kratom is like kind of one of the things that actually helped her like on her road to recovery. So she's a big advocate for it, and she really helped me like understand it and learn about it. And it's interesting stuff for sure, man.
Yeah,
plant medicines fascinate me.
I think with any sort of drug for the most part, just the self-awareness. How does it affect me? How am I reacting to it? And I think there's pros and cons to most of them. And I'm not talking like the meths or the heroines, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Am I going to work 5 days a week? Am I paying my bills? Do I need it when I wake up in the morning? Like there's those check the boxes. Is this a problem or not?
Right.
But you have to have that self-control and self-talk. And I think a lot of the problem with people that don't is they don't have that self-control.
Yeah. I think ultimately humans are always going to alter consciousness. It's just inevitable. You can't even keep drugs out of prison.
Right.
We're gonna find a way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, and with society stress and political stress, work stress, money stress.
Yeah.
Who's trying to stay sober?
Yeah. Dude, and you see it across a ton of different species. It's not just humans that like to alter consciousness, right? So it's just a part of humans, and it's crazy that we treat it as like a criminal offense.
Right.
It's just at most it's like a mental health thing.
Right.
Or it's
Oregon
it's
decriminalized most drugs. Or
yeah, that's great,
drugs.
man. You know what I'm saying? I think there's a lot of models to show how we can handle this differently.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Man, it's
Other
exciting
countries
stuff.
do great with it.
Yeah, man. I think what Portugal's completely decriminalized, and they've been so for a long, long time, right? And there's a lot of places where it's like, all right, if you do get caught with drugs, it's like, all right, you're not going to jail, but we're gonna you're gonna get a fine, you're gonna get an option to seek treatment.
Yeah,
right?
That's what Oregon is. The problem is they didn't balance out the social services with it too. So
right.
Now there's not enough drug and alcohol counselors or therapists in the area to meet the needs.
You actually have to support the system.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, they're learning as they go.
Yeah.
I get that it's new, but
exciting times, dude.
it's positive for sure.
Yeah, man. Well, dude, I want to be respectful of your time. We've been talking for a while now. It's almost 6:00.
All right,
dude. This has been so fun.
For sure.
Thank you so much for taking the time, man.
I'd love to do it again. Sometime maybe talk about like my injuries and coming back and training after.
Dude, yeah.
Full spinal fusion. And
yeah, you've had a
broken
crazy
jaw
ride,
and
though.
everything
We've
else,
only
yeah.
like scratched the surface, bro. So yeah, anytime, bro. Seriously.
Cool.
Is there anything you want to direct the people towards or anything like that? Place they can check you out or?
OG_Mooch on Instagram.
There you go.
What you see is what you get there.
Right on, my man.
But no, that's about it.
Okay, cool. Well, right on, man. Thanks again.
For sure, homie.
All right, everybody. Bye.